All right, welcome into Tracking the Tropics, live with this special Bertha edition. Chief Meteorologist Hank Allen here, along with Meteorologist Natalie Parsons. And of course, we're talking all things Bertha as we continue to watch this go across the northern Gulf. And what jumps out at me on this is just sort of this wonky pass track there, which is a little combination, I think, of the storm moving some, but also the center bouncing around some.
Yeah.
Because, of course, it's been such a weak system. But look, winds up to 60 miles per hour. And, of course, this is the latest update from, I guess, 1 o'clock this afternoon with the hurricane hunters out there and everything. So those are your latest coordinates and intensities. The updated track will come in at 4 o'clock this afternoon, as is usually the case. And then we're back live at 7 this evening. So that should
Double
be,
take.
yeah, just in time for that 7 o'clock update, that intermediate update with any sort of, new coordinates or anything. They don't put out the new track there, but they'll put out any sort of strengthening or movement or anything like that. So the latest forecast as of early this morning is still right along the lower coastal areas and sort of a weakening trend. And of course, you were in here yesterday evening and we've watched this track sort of shift to the south.
Yes, which is great news. I mean, over the weekend it was very coastal. Then for a little bit yesterday it was a little northward smidge, but it looks like it's actually come down a bit, which is a little bit of a relief. We're not fully in the clear though, but any trend southward is good for us. Yeah,
and worse for Texas. And we're going to talk about why here as we go through the rest of this show. This is an interesting system in the sense that, you have the Hurricane Center predictions here of intensity. And that is probably still the most likely scenario, I think, as we go along here. The biggest question will be, how far south does it get?
Yes.
And if we get this southwestward push a little earlier here as that ridge builds in from the north, then I think you're really going to have to adjust the tail end of this as opposed to, where we have a tropical depression over here coming into northeastern Texas. I still think you have a chance to see a fairly significant hurricane lower along the Texas coast. And so that's why the next couple of days are so critical here. If this was coming right over New Orleans, obviously it's fully inland, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And then just sort of dissipating, I think, very quickly. Anything along the coast and just offshore
can rev up a little bit.
Well, now you're tapping into the water. And for anybody that may be watching that's not as familiar with the coast as local folks here, I mean, you've got the map here, but that's not all land.
It's marshy.
Yeah, and that's a lot of marsh, a lot of water there. There's not necessarily a whole lot of land. It's not necessarily the scenario you would talk about maybe if it was farther inland and weakening and that sort of thing. And you can see the latest spaghetti models. I love how there's still a couple that shoot straight up to the north there. But the main groupings sort of along that track that the Hurricane Center was mentioning. Pretty good agreement, you're right. Now, my concern here again is for the folks over in Texas. This is where the Hurricane Center is, but look how many of these models now are shifting farther to the south. And so that, I think, is your real potential here to see some strengthening. Now, of course, when I first posted on Facebook about this a couple mornings ago, I thought maybe a hurricane around Louisiana coast, but we've just had so much wind shear and dry air that this thing just is not looking that impressive at all. That being said, it's still 60 miles per hour with all that. So as you continue to move this to the west, if it stays offshore, then you're going to have more chances for intensification, less wind shear by that point.
So you don't think that we could see any sort of hurricane potential for us? It's 60 mile per hour with maximum sustained winds. You need to be 75 mile per hour maximum sustained winds for category 1. So we have to go touching on that question.
It's not that far off.
It's not.
I think that's probably, I'll say this. Maybe not initially, like if it gets towards the mouth of the river, maybe not a hurricane by that point. But maybe, farther west along Terrebonne Parish or something gets to hurricane strength, something like that. So that's why.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah, I really think everybody is better off if this just stays a little inland and heads due west.
Okay.
And then we all just move on with our day and, move on to our weekend. Because something a little farther south is going to create big problems over there for Texas, the way it looks to me. Now, everybody's been talking about, and I'll say this, our job as meteorologists is to forecast. So I hate putting out an either-or scenario. But part of tropical forecasting is also you have to watch to see how things are developing. And so this is really critical over the next 24 hours. Does it keep meandering northwest, or does it start to show signs of a little bit of that westerly, southwesterly turn? So that's why it's very critical, and that's why I keep talking about these two different scenarios here. Everybody's been talking about the wind shear and how far south all the activity is from the center. I mean, there's no question about that. And that's why it's likely to continue over the next day or so. I mean, here's the center. I mean, look at all this convection and thunderstorm activity farther to the south. Now, if you had the center under that, it'd be a different. Yeah, it'd be a different story.
You'd be in trouble.
And if we didn't have this wind shear that we've had the past couple of days, this would be a much different scenario. I mean, you and me were on this show a week ago talking about on this
you were
track
hinting.
in the tropics.
Yeah.
We were talking about that MJO phase. You got to watch the Gulf.
Yes.
I half jokingly says tails of the cocktail week, so I expect something to come in, so I'm stuck at work.
That's this week.
It's right now.
Ah.
So we were, Natalie and I were here last week talking about not a likelihood necessarily, but at least a potential for something to be out there. And so here we are. And so you've seen all these plots probably over the past couple of days of the rain well south of the center. And that's the impact of that northerly shear. And you can see it right there. The center here, not much around it, ton of rain to the south. Now what's interesting to me is all the banding.
All the stuff on the outskirts. Like even last night, it was, I think it was maybe shortly before we went live at 10 p.m. Little by little, I started to see some storms just kind of dancing with our coastal areas, St. Bernard's and Plaquemines parishes and stuff like that. Yeah, and
there's some out there right now. Sort of on the western side, obviously, of the circulation, but you're getting a nice little cool down here on the western side of our area. And of course, for folks that may be watching from out of the area, southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi is what we're talking about when we talk about our coverage area. But obviously, we pay attention to the whole coast when it comes to tropical systems. But I am impressed with, and I think that speaks to the quality of this system that people are maybe not talking about, because yes, there is a ton of wind shear, and there's a ton of dry air that everybody's been looking at, and that's why the center looks so ragged. But this is obviously still a pretty impressive circulation, because you're getting banding over into Georgia at this point, and the Florida Panhandle. And so that's why I think the overall structure, maybe not the core structure, is that great, but the overall structure is still pretty indicative of a decent tropical system. So that's why we're all thankful for this wind shear and everything that's pushing that rain to the south, because otherwise this would be a big issue. And you can see some of that wind shear forecast here still over southern Mississippi and southern Alabama. Now, what I want to point out as we go through the next couple of days, as there's the official Hurricane Center track all the way through the timeline, but look at Wednesday morning here, which is the time frame that we're looking at this, kind of around the southern coast. Look how that wind shear drops off. And so that's my concern, that if this is a little bit more offshore, now all of a sudden we don't have that, and now you're able to start, as you said, tapping into that warm water and cranking things up a little bit. So a lot more to talk about. We'll talk a little more analysis, then we'll get to our local impacts here when we come back in just a couple minutes. Thanks for sticking with us. Hank Allen, Natalie Parsons back with you here. We'll take a look at the latest futurecast modeling from the European model. And again, there's a bunch of models out there, so this is the one I've been showing for the past few days. But, kind of along the Hurricane Center track is where this is. And it's interesting. I think a lot of those bigger models like the GFS, the European, kind of are still a little bit more inland.
A little bit more widespread, too.
Yeah, and as opposed to those tropical models we showed on the Spaghettis, they're a little farther south. But the biggest takeaway, or at least one of them to me here, is the fact that if you've been following along the past couple of days, by this point, the Euro had just sort of totally dissipated this. And it had just predicted it moves inland, dissipates, not much going on. Well, now all of a sudden you've still got a pretty good circulation there and a closed low, south of the city here. Now, what we're talking about, one of the things we're talking about is that the shear has just displaced all this rain so far south of the center that, we've been talking about sandbag locations the past couple of days and all of that. As a widespread flood threat, it's just not there, because all that heavy rain is going to be south over the Gulf.
It's now, obviously,
obviously a little bit more if you're along the coast there. But so the biggest impact to me, rain-wise, would be kind of like what we're seeing in Florida right now, where you get some of those bands popping up, which initially I didn't think we'd see. I mean, this looked like so ragged of a system, but they're over there.
It's kind of doing a lot of things. It's kind of been very a suspenseful system. Even like over the weekend, I remember they were like, oh, it's going to go straight into a tropical storm on Sunday. Sunday came, didn't come. Then they were like, oh, Monday morning. Monday morning came, didn't happen. And then yesterday evening, it's like, there we go.
Right. And when they first put it as a tropical storm, I mean, it looked ridiculous. I even posted, this is complete garbage.
Well, it's kind of along the lines with what you were saying and the fact that some people were just like fully dismissing it and stuff. And I remember looking at the models over the weekend. I'm just like, this is interesting. Is it going to turn into anything, or is it just going to be, in your famous words, a hot mess or something?
Garbage alert.
Yeah.
And it looked like that when they first called it a tropical storm.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is I think people have put so much emphasis on the wind shear and the dry air that everyone is discounting the fact that this looks the way it does now, and the fact that you still have the potential for this to strengthen a lot more as it moves to the west. So I do agree, and I think everyone does, that the heaviest rain is going to be to the south in terms of a widespread blob, that sort of thing. Now, as we all know with tropical systems, if you get one of those bands of cells stuck over you, that could still drop several inches of rain because those tend to not move. They just tend
4
to
to
be
8 localized.
just tend to be set up as we're seeing in Florida, and they may not even be a solid band. It may just be cells moving in the same spot. That'd be the tornado threat too, of course, if we actually see that. So that would be the one thing to watch for as this thing scoots off to the west. I know we got some tropical storm warnings. You were talking about these yesterday.
It's changed a little bit too. It was a lot of tropical storm watches across our coastal areas, but now we have more spots in the blue, which means a tropical storm warning.
Yeah, so those have, that's pretty recent, like you said, because last night it was all pretty much watch, and then now you've got the warnings here, lower parishes, St. Bernard, southeastern St. Tammany. What's interesting is I'm talking with our producer, Christine, who, we like to reach out to local officials and get phoners for coverage and that sort of thing. So like Good Morning New Orleans tomorrow and all that. And St. Tammany responded with, no, we're not doing it because we're not going to see anything. And so I
Jokes on them.
Well, I don't know about that totally, but I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss if you're around the Slidell area because, you're under that tropical storm warning now. And
they got the blue.
We're going to show you this storm surge forecast here in a little bit as well. So maybe not completely out of the woods of that.
Even the lake areas too. I mean, they are at chances of seeing some storm surge to an extent. It may not be to the extent that, say, St. Bernard or Plaquemines Parish, but I mean,
some.
Covington, Mandeville, they see flooding regularly with storms.
And so these are issued more, I think, for wind potential here when you talk about tropical storm watches and warnings. So that's more of the impact of, hey, we could get some tropical storm wind gusts and that sort of thing. Now, there also is a storm surge watch, I believe, still along the coast. So that's something different. So here's the latest wind updates, and these have gone up.
46-mile-per-hour wind gusts right in Pilot Town.
Yeah. So I was in yesterday morning, of course, for Kerrigan. You were in yesterday evening.
40.
And most of these numbers were kind of in the 30s.
Yes, nothing really too crazy. I mean, sometimes when we have a severe weather, situation, we do see winds of this wind gusts of this capacity. At one point yesterday, I think it was Grand Isle on the model that I was looking at, almost got up to like 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Kind of changing a little bit, but not too far off.
Usual theme, you're going to get stronger along the coast, of course, and over the water. But the theme is, I think a lot of these models are now picking up on at least that wind gust potential here, saying, hey, this thing may not be as weak as it initially looked. That's why I'm still intrigued that the Hurricane Center keeps it so weak in their forecast. And I'll be curious to see as we get to the 4 o'clock time slot if they up that a little bit. As opposed to 45, maybe they up it to 50 or 55, something like that. So we'll see how that latest track comes out. Now, again, these aren't obviously major damage-producing wind gusts. This is what you'd get maybe behind, like you said, a strong cold front or severe thunderstorms are popping up 80-mile-an-hour gusts for us.
Nothing that like we don't regularly see.
Right.
So
it's just the fact that it's more, I guess, persistent.
Yes.
With a tropical system here, and you can see. But you can see the thinking. Yeah. Now we're getting close to 50 with these wind gusts
Wednesday,
here.
4 p.m. dinner time.
Yeah. So tomorrow afternoon, now you're in the mid to upper 40s along the coastal areas, and also up into maybe southern Mississippi as that circulation moves off to the west. And then as it continues west, now we start. There's your Grand Isle at 39, and now we start bringing some of those wind gusts here also across the rest of the South Shore. Notice this forecast model has the center just off to the southwest of Terrebonne Parish, which is a little bit farther south than the actual Hurricane Center plot. But nevertheless, I do want you to pay attention to the circulation here, because even if it was a little bit farther north, the overall circulation direction would be the same, to where you shift that storm surge potential, I guess, with the flow. So as you mentioned, now we're talking about Lake Pontchartrain. Now you've got east-west flow here. So now you've got some of that storm surge wrapping around in that. This would be a point where maybe you get water over Grand Isle, which, as we know, you could drop a bucket and get water on
Does
Grand
the spillway have anything to go being concerned about at all with that?
Well, I would say you could get some flooding areas. Obviously, I-10 is very elevated there. But that is a great point, because right when you get off the spillway, you get that interchange there of I-55 and Highway 51. And so I-55 is kind of elevated coming into I-10, so you're okay there. But Highway 51 at ground level there, a lot of times does get closed because of water that has been pushed over in that area. And so I think that is at least a possibility this time around, that you get some water that spills over. Same story up, if you're up in Madisonville, parts of, I believe it's Highway 22 there, every now and then get closed because you got water coming up there.
We'll have to chat more about that.
Yeah, Hancock County, of course, tons of beach roads, get flooded over there. As you get over to Bay St. Louis, Waveland, they get water all the time. So I would see a situation where some of that would be occurring as well. So another break coming up here. We'll come back, talk more local impacts in just a couple minutes. All right, back here, our final segment on Tracking the Tropics. Natalie got
a viewer question, because we have a Facebook Live going, and we'll also have another one going when we go live at 7 p.m. This way you can not only see the behind the scenes, but also ask some questions. Our new friend Marco's asking about power outages, and he's asking whether or not somehow he heard that winds would be getting up to 75-mile-per-hour winds. Are we going to see that? And what is the potential for power outages?
This is the world of a meteorologist, is there's all sorts of random stuff being thrown out. So no, I think it would be highly unlikely to get a 75-mile-an-hour wind gust out of this in New Orleans.
That would make it also a hurricane.
Yeah, and to even get to that strength, it'd have to be way higher than that probably, because you always knock it down a little inland. So no, but power outages, I mean, look, we are in southeast Louisiana.
It happens a lot.
Power goes out all the time. Metro New Orleans, we saw some of those gusts into the 30s and 40s. Is that enough to cause it? That's all up to the grid, which, as we know, is sketchy. Now, farther south towards the coast, you start getting into some of these 40s, 50s, St. Bernard, Plaquemines.
Yes.
Maybe some power outages and that sort of thing. But winds here in New Orleans, I'd be more in that sort of 35 to 40 gust range at this point, maybe up to 45. But
thanks
of course,
for the question. Keep them coming. We'll answer them in the 7.
Any wind gust around here can blow a tree branch down on a power line.
That is facts.
That's always the risk there.
That is facts.
This is the Hurricane Center storm surge outlook at the moment as of the earlier update. And again, I wouldn't be surprised to see them up this a little bit as well. You can see 2 to 4 feet from around Buras to the border of Alabama and Florida. I would actually lean a little bit on the higher end here. I would be more in the 4 to 5, 4 to 6 feet, based on what I think this is going to do. But this is why I love this graphic right here, because it gives you a more detailed look. And so you can see that the yellow is greater than 3 feet above ground. The orange says greater than 6 feet. There is some orange on there, which is maybe a little bit on the high side, but it kind of goes to what I'm talking about, to where you could get up to about 5 or 6 foot area there. And you mentioned probably St. Bernard and Plaquemines being sort of the main focal point of that. Now, again, the white area here, that's your levee system. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about all these low-lying spots outside the levee system. You know how this goes. But, if you got the camps, if you got the trailers or the boats or whatever, if you're in Hopedale or, Shell Beach or Wyclosky, and you're like, well, should I move this to higher ground before they close the floodgates? I would probably do that. Yeah, because you could get anywhere from 4 or 5, maybe 6 feet in those spots, and I think it's a good idea to go ahead and protect all that and just bring it up onto the levee road there, or wherever you normally take it.
Be safe,
until this passes through. Yeah, absolutely. And so you get down here, Plaquemines, sort of in that, again, 3 to 4 foot range, especially on the eastern side of the river. You look back up. Now, here's what we were talking about in Slidell here, where, you've got that flow coming in to where Hancock County, probably going to see some flooded roads there. Slidell, Bay St. Louis over there, certainly. And I want you to know, the great thing about this graphic is it really shows you all the little rivers and the tributaries and all this. Now, 3 feet way up here around Pearlington may be a little bit excessive, but it gives you an idea of what we were talking about with the flow and this type of movement on a storm, to where you get that water pushed back up farther inland into some of these creeks and rivers and stream beds and that sort of thing. So some of those neighborhoods in southeastern St. Tammany, where you typically get some of that high water, whether it be Eden Isles or some of those other ones that we see out there, it's possible. Yeah, we could get a couple of feet of water over there. So just be aware of that, into Hancock County as well. And then we've been talking about that flow coming around the lake. And so here's what you were asking about earlier.
Spillway.
Yep, that's exactly in that
Got a little
spillway
color change
area.
there.
So this is all spillway zone, marshy area, of course, here, until you get down to the levee there in St. Charles. But obviously you can see, again, sort of that flow coming around into the western side of the lake, which would, maybe give you a little high water there, as we mentioned, along Highway 51, which is, continuing up here. There's around Man Shack, so some high water there. You got Madisonville up there where the Tchefuncte spills out. That's that high range, high area. And then just west of there that we typically see some of that, some of that higher level, 2 to 3 feet, that just swells up. I mean, we're not flooding houses really here at this point, but some of the lakefront may be closed as you get over towards, Mandeville and Lacombe.
Is that the lakefront with like the drive? There's like this big road kind of straight. Because there's somebody on social media who does these drone videos, and it seems like that spot gets a lot of flooding situations.
Yeah, it's probably the Mandeville area. And so sometimes you'll get the high water pouring in there, and they'll have to close that every now and then if it gets too high, and over towards Madisonville. And then, you're in southern Tangipahoa Parish right here. So, that area right between, Lake Maurepas, Lake Pontchartrain, again, everything is pretty elevated here, but it may just be hard to drive. Like if you were trying to go eat catfish at Manchac, you may have a day where that water is over the road there. So usual areas here where you see that water getting pushed up, as we call it, backwater flooding. I mean, that's really what this graphic is even highlighting here with some of these other rivers over here into Livingston Parish, that water just getting pushed in. And so again, we're not talking about catastrophic flooding that is flooding people's houses here. We're just talking about higher water levels in these areas as an indication of that flow and how strong that flow is going to be. And we've seen many storms in the past that have come through, and it's just partly cloudy and breezy with some tropical showers, which at the end of the day, I think this is what this is for us. But you still have, decent coastal flooding. I mean, there's still water pouring over areas regardless of rain here.
So there was I saw another social media posting. I saw somebody, an outlet, go posting images of Katrina, and I'm like, why are you doing that right now?
You can't do that. That's why I hate the media.
That's not fair. I was that person who commented and be like, this is not appropriate.
No.
Why are we making people scared of something?
This is why I hate the media, because people just post stuff. And Facebook pages, we talk about all the time on air. Random weather pages that just post stuff for impact.
Weather influencers.
Clickbaits, all that. Please don't pay attention to those. If you don't trust us at WGNO, trust another trusted media outlet. Follow the Hurricane Center, follow the Weather Service.
Get the facts.
Yeah, don't follow these random pages that are just posting nonsense about what's going on here. But you can see some of that high water as well, up to maybe 3 feet across parts of Lafourche and Terrebonne. We mentioned the rain. Again, even if this thing cuts right across the area, I don't see widespread heavy rain. This forecast model shows it, and you can see that batch down in the Gulf that we've been looking at over the past few days.
This is all south of our area.
Way in the Gulf.
We're right.
Yep.
In the 2 to 3, maybe 4 inch range.
And even that is excessive. I really think for the most part, as this moves overhead, a lot of us are just breezy and sunny with maybe now, I wasn't thinking initially, but maybe now what they're seeing in Florida, those tropical cells that come through.
Okay.
And so if that trend continues, if the center is moving right over us, with these bands on the eastern side, now we got to watch out for some isolated spin-up tornadoes, typical stuff heading into Thursday maybe, and that sort of thing. But the widespread rainfall flooding, not going to occur because everything's pushed so far to the south. So we'll wrap it up here. We've only got 30 seconds. Like you said, we're back at 7.
Yes, we are. Please give us your questions. We want to cater to you. I'm going to have a Facebook Live going once again on my page as well as the WGNO page. So let's hear from you.
Tune in. We'll have the latest Hurricane Center update. Of course, join us at 5 and 6 on WGNO News as well. And we'll keep you up to date as Bertha continues to move to the west. Thanks for sticking with us. Have a great afternoon.